Dear Venerable Sisters and Brothers, Dhamma friends, we are going to start the talk today. May everyone settle down and give the consent with 3 times sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Namo tasse Bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhasse. Katame tayo dhamma bhavi tabba tayo samadhiti. Dear Venerable Sisters, Brothers and Dhamma friends, we are proceeding, we are advancing along this particular Sutta, Dasuththara Sutta, specifically what are the 3 things, which are the 3 things to be cultivated, to be developed. And Venerable Sariputta is asking the question as well as he is giving the answer, 3 kinds of concentration, namely avitakka, savitakka, savichara samadhi, avitakka, vicharamatta samadhi, avitakka vichara samadhi. So we all try to understand this, the first one, with savitakka savichara samadhi, that is to summarize as noting and knowing. As far as there are a lot of objects at a given time, you pay your attention by noting a particular object, which premeditated object, so we call the primary object. And that is also, you have to understand it, you have to isolate it, delimit it by nature. When you are sitting without a will, without a volition, without idea, but still fully aware that you know you are sitting, see what is happening. And then that very being, that very sitting is the starting point. We call it be aware of your posture or see what is happening in the present moment. And that's a starting point. And for that you have to, if the mind is naturally falls calm and quiet on your sitting posture, don't worry about noting, but knowing is there. You know you are not standing. You know you are not walking. You know you are not lying down, but you are standing. And that knowing is something verifiable thing. That is the beauty in vipassana meditation. The very knowing is something verifiable. It may be mentality or physicality or nama and rupa, whatever it may be. But many, or specifically beginners, find difficult to keep the attention or the focus on that particular object. So therefore, the noting is taken as a tool so that you can advert your mind. Otherwise, it would roam around, wander away, bewildered. So that kind of adverting or avenuing with that particular object is the primary task of the yogi, and it is a hard task. So that we have this tool, what is called noting. And more and more you practice it, you may sometimes get successful results. By noting, you can keep the particular object in view, and there we call that particular alignment, that particular momentum, that particular acceleration you learn is called savitakka savichara samadhi. You note or you label and then you know. Knowing, noting and knowing. So, my opinion is that much of a clarity in the start we got through Burmese tradition. Otherwise, this noting, labeling is it was not much of a used tool, and that is a characteristic of the Burmese tradition. And when and where you learn this habit of, or the technique of labeling or noting, you get certain amount of maneuvering power just to give more preference for that particular object. It is like when there are in the night show, in a drama, if you wanted to highlight a particular actor, you can focus a beam, others are in the darkness, and that particular one become more prominent. Likewise, whenever your mindfulness, light of mindfulness is focused to one particular thing, it become illuminated, highlighted, and there are more chances for you to see the shapes and the manner of that particular object. So for that, this focusing is what you call noting, and then the knowing is the essential part, but you must take care. Not only for diverting the attention or the mind to that, but each and every time mind come and get connected with that particular object, try to get at least one feature, either a shape or the manner, and then only by communicating that only other person can understand whether you are talking something really happened, or you are imagining, or you are too late or too early, whatever it may be. So to be when and where you learn it, you get more and more skillfulness. So the Burmese Sayadaw, specifically the Upandita Sayadaw, he says, if you wish to see the true picture, if you wish to see the things undisturbed, you have to reach the object as and when it is arising. Or you must be prepared, that preparedness, and without delaying, without negligence, diligently be on the spot, be as and when it's arising, is a kind of a skillfulness, it's a kind of a proficiency you are developing, specifically when you are in a residential retreat like that, not only just met up with the object, but try to be from the beginning as and when it is arising. To give an example, if you wish to see the sunrise, you have to go before dawn and see the dawn first, because it's a precursor. It's a foresign telling that 30 minutes time the sun will come. So you have to go there and be prepared, and then you can see the dawn arises and then the sun arises. So likewise, when and where you are doing, for example, meditating upon the in-breath and out-breath, or rising and falling, or left leg and the right leg, there's a kind of a chance for you to be aware, now the breath is about to arise, and your attention, your mindfulness must develop this quality of diligence without a delay. Negligence. Negligence in Pali called pamada. Diligence is called as appamada. If you get delayed, you see something, a twisted object, not the object as and when it is arising. And so, because object is so quickly changing, so earlier the better. When you as and when it arises, if you can observe, that is better. And the advantage is the object as well as the mindfulness more obedient if you can tackle as and when it arises. It says you can nip it off at the bud level without grow more. So nip it at the bud level. Because most of the time these arising objects, if you go unprepared, if you let go, it is leading to desire and undesire, the desirability and undesirability. So once it is developed, desire or undesire, very difficult to tackle. So it arises as and when the object arises. So therefore, if you be aware, if you are diligent, as and when the object arises, it is not a beginner's job. You must have a certain amount of mindfulness. You must have already listened to the instructions, and then only one day you can see you are developing the skill how to observe the object as and when it arises. Just like not only you observe in the sunrise, you can observe the dawn also. So that is a kind of a diligence, your preparedness, and some people develop it within few minutes time, but for a beginner it takes 30-40 minutes for you to be prepared and to see as and when the object arises. As and when the object arises, knowingly or unknowingly, likings and disliking arises. Once the likings and disliking established, you become a slave. So as and when the object arises, if you go there, better chances are there for you to see, together with the object, the notion that emotions and the mental coloration can happen. So earlier the better, if you can understand these likings and disliking. So therefore go to the object as early as possible or diligently. Otherwise you see something twisted. Maha, the teacher of Pandita Sado, used to say, if you wish to see the real shape or the manner of the lightning in the evening sky, you have to gazing at the sky when it is lightening, and then only you can see the arc from going from one to the other and in different ways branching it out. Just one thought moment before, signs are not there. And soon after lightning, it is not there. So therefore, that preparedness is, you must understand it is the cloudful or the clouded sky and thundering going on. So likewise, you have to observe, and then you can see the arc, the electric arc is happening. Likewise, the preparedness is, more and more you prepared, you can see the object as it is. Otherwise, our mind is always with stories, always the object is fast moving. Therefore, this preparedness, that see the object as and when it arises, then only, Pandita Sayadaw claims, you can see the natural characteristics of the object. It is not beautified, not adjusted, as and when it is arises. So this is a very interesting, very important part in Vipassana. So therefore at the beginning you start noting and keep the object face to face with, and more you develop the skillfulness, you try to see as and when the object arises, when it is happening, you are bound to see the natural characteristic or the real nature or undistorted nature of the object. So this is a kind of a norm, or we can say rule of thumb in Vipassana. So therefore noting, not simply observing, but you must bring it to the early part of the object. That is to say, whenever we say we experience the in-breath, for example, we only experience the gross part of the in-breath. Its beginning, how we develop up to the rubbing, gushing air part is not a job of a beginner. It's understanding and observing it a skillful job. So therefore at the beginning you have to understand this bell-shaped curve, only the tip. And make sure each and every time when the breath arises, you can see the tip. And then when and where the time permits, go to the early part. And going to early part means your mindfulness is very prepared and vigilant, and you see the early signs of the in-breath. That is to say, you are starting from the tip of the iceberg and slowly penetrating into, submerging into, go into the side, and there you can see the breath is not a magic. It is just a subtle thing is becoming gross, and after a certain level, we start to feel. We have the perception. Before that, there is a part, it is like before the actress and actors come to the stage, there's the preparation for that. They prepare with their due costumes and kind of that. Preparation is not usually valid for the spectators or the drama observers, but if you go there, you can see they are just normal human beings. They put up like a king and they like this and that, and this preparation part is not usually in the drama. Therefore, you have to understand the breath. If you take the breath as an object, it has a kind of a unexposed part before it come up to the rubbing sensation in your nostrils, and once you go there, you can understand, and more become diligent, more and more you become vigilant. You can see very subtle start, and then there is an area where you can see not only the object, you can see the object with its own beginning. And that means you see object as well as it is beginning. So this is the way you see these subtle things are the one manifested as gross thing. And when it becomes gross, you put the label. You have a natural, it has its own label, its own characteristic. But before it happens, manifested or become gross, up to that level, you are not usually putting a label, but if you are sharp enough, if you are vigilant enough, if you are mindful enough, you can go to the beginning. So, in the Majjhima Sutta, the Buddha mentioned, by keeping each and every in-breath in view with, you must divert your attention to the early part of the breath. And there will be a chance where you can see the beginning and the breath. So there you can see how the subtle breath, the disappearing breath is causing this gross breath. And that is the area expanded into how this subtle cause gives rise to this gross breath, and the cause and effect relationship is happening. And you are observing pertaining to your own primary object, that is the in-breath, as an out-breath, and each and every object, or in the sense every impingement is common in this character. When and where we comes to know, it has already developed few episodes, few stages, and when and where it comes out to the perceivable level, that is not the beginning. Usually that beginning is hidden. And we are jumping from tip to tip. We never see the beginning. When and where you go to the beginning part, that means from the tip of the iceberg, you go down there, you see the tip of the iceberg is only 1/10 of the volume. The majority is underwater. Majority is submersion, the subsurface. And when and where you learn the art to go into this early part, that is to say, now you are observing, of course, the early part of the breath, early part of the gushing air, early part of the physicality. But later, you can understand, this is exactly what happened when you are developing a desire. When and where you recognize your desire as desire, it is not the beginning. It would have come much earlier due to your negligence, due to your ignorance, due to your not adverting of the attention at the due course. You only see already gross, already developed desire. By that time you can't control it. But understand the materiality, how it starts from the subtle and develop, and once it come up to a certain level or threshold value, then only you come into the perception. But before come into perception, you can develop if you are skillful in mindfulness, if you are ready to see the beginning part, and that is the beautiful side in our meditation. Sometimes that was explained partly by the Sigmund Freud. He mentioned and he explained it, and then later Carl Jung there was a clash between two people, but early part they were friends. The Carl Jung mentioned the Sigmund Freud found how to make a tunnel from the mind to the subsurface mind, or to say consciousness to subconscious. Conscious is the what we call the tip of the iceberg. You start the tip, and then not just happy, just mere mindfulness, that is called bare attention. You develop the skill of the attention, develop the skill of the mindfulness to go into the beginning part. When you go to the beginning, you can see there's a long story, historical story there, and go more and more you go there, your mindfulness becomes very sharp, and you see the beginning of the desire, the beginning of the hatred, beginning of the sleepiness, beginning of the in-breath, beginning of the out-breath, and together with the object. This is the most important part in the Vipassana knowledges. So you are, when and where you see an object, so to say, the face value, you never arrive at a decision. You let it happen again and again. If it is not happening again and again, forgive and forget. Forgive and forget. Don't make stories out of that, whatever arising and passing away for a split second. To give an example or episode, one day a Zen master is going with his own disciple along a lake, and the disciple is very concerned and slowly, mindfully, silently walking behind the teacher. And all of a sudden he saw a nice array of wild ducks are flying. And he looked at the sky and he found it's very colorful, and he shouted and told Master, you see, there are wild ducks. And Master slowly came, turned and asked him, do you know the beginning of where do they come from? No. Do you know where they are going? No. Then he slapped the fellow. If you do not know the beginning at the end, why you are talking about that? It's nonsense, not relevant. If it is repetitively appearing only, it is concerned about our one thing. So that is why Anupassana is come into being. The breath is such a thing repetitive. The rising and fall is such a thing repetitive. Left leg and the right leg is such a thing repetitive. So we take such an object. First you see the tip of the iceberg, and then work to see the beginning. And when you go there, you understand, unless otherwise such a precise preparedness or well-instructed guided, the guidance, mind by nature never goes into that. Mind is making stories from the point where it gets perception, then onward. But here it is going against the current, against the grain, and try to see the beginning of it. When you are going there, it is very electric, because the moment you see each and every object, each and every sensuous object has its own origin and its transitional period or transient period and the end. Not a single object failed to follow this course that is called Sankata, or that means it has a beginning, the middle and the end. That is what we call in the common language. The Buddha mentioned, Uppado Panyayati, Vayo Panyayati, Titasa Anya Tattam Panyayati. You are talking about the middle, but it has its own origin. And it has its transition period, that is a period you can perceive. And then it ceases to exist without a trace. So, if you wish to know the object or natural characteristic, the whole history or the whole bell-shaped curve, make sure what you see is just the tip of the iceberg. Try to see. When you are going there, whenever the mindfulness becomes sharp, whenever you see you are learning the art, you see from the beginning to come up to this perceivable level, it's a huge change, huge metamorphosis, huge transition or evolution takes place, unbelievable. It is unbelievable. Not this time, I tell last time when I go to Burma, the translator is translating, I can understand little bit of Burmese. Then the Sayadaw is telling, I think it is too much we are expecting from the yogis, not only observing the object, not only noting it, we are asking them to see the beginning. It is a skillful job. The masters are expecting too much from the yogis. But he says there is no other way. Lucky enough we have the map. Lucky enough we have the way. So therefore, whenever you try to see the just beginning and then how quickly it come up to the perceivable level, he says by that, within that period, the mindfulness is gaining such a skillfulness. It's something like an electron microscope. You plunge into the object and you can see how it appears and grow up to the perceivable level, and it's happening in such a fast way. Unbelievable. Sayadaw himself is giving, I am too much quoting him, sorry. He says, look at the field, look at a TV screen, when there is no program, you can see a lot of dots. So full of dots, I don't know, some person, TVs are not working like that. If there is no program, it won't open, but early type of screens, TV screen, you can see 1001 dots. From these dots only the story starts. From these dots only the animation starts whenever you focus. So when it is happening, so instead of looking at the whole screen, Sayadaw is asking just focus into one dot. And you can see never two dots are hitting each other. Even million dots are happening, never hitting each other. That means what does that indicate? There's a space. Always they maintain a space. And exactly the place where the dot disappeared, another one start without a time gap, but there is no clash. That means not only space, there's a time. Each and every dot explained, there's a specific time and specific space. Each and every dot has its own rising, its own transitional period, and its own end. So therefore, by looking at the screen, you can say, I have seen it. But when you are focusing so sharply, you can reduce the whole screen into one particular dot, and more you study, you will see that dot itself has its own history, its own story. So by looking at the gross, very difficult you can claim you have seen each and every dot, at least one dot. So likewise, whenever you are focusing the attention on the in-breath and out-breath, first make sure by noting each and every in-breath you can note. Each and every in-breath you can know. And not only that, try to see the early part, the preparation part, the beginning of the in-breath, and then you can see there is an unperceivable stage, and you can deduce. Inferentially you can understand, from that only it comes, and story starts when and where it becomes perceivable. And before that there is a part, and that part is so transient. So more and more you see there, the observed object and the observing mind has to come very, 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 very close. And it is happening. So only what you have to maintain is, don't just be happy by looking at the face value of the object. Try to come closer, plunge into the object. More and more plunging happen only in the repetitive objects. It must be again and again you are focusing. Each time you focus, you come closer to the object, you plunge into the object, you can see the natural characteristics of the object, and before that, if you are going to make any decision or inference, that is a partial truth. Nothing but a partial truth. So imagine the world full of knowledge, we call worldly knowledge. They are completely calm. They have no discipline to see the beginning of anything. They are making all the stories out of this tip of the iceberg. But the Buddha, for the first time, asked to go against the grain. When you go there, one day you will see the natural characteristics of the particular object, that is called in Pali Sabhava Lakkana. And there you have to see, if you are looking from object to object or changing objects, your knowledge never go deep into it. Is naturally superficial knowledge and it is unreliable. You can't make a comment because you're not enough feasibility study. So when the yogi going to get isolated particular primary object, observe again and again, and then go to the beginning, and then he can see the middle, that is the tip of the iceberg, and that very knowledge never ceases to exist without showing the cessation of the same object. So to see the cessation part, your mindfulness must be very sharp. It must know the art, how to go against the grain to see the beginning, and beginning is very subtle and very transient. With that knowledge, let the object to come into the middle, and then when disappearing, you can see the dissolution, and it is, otherwise it is hidden. Otherwise you consider as a taboo. Otherwise consider as it's a bad omen. You are never happy to see dissolution part of the anything, because that is the way our culture is always showing us the beginning, uppada, and the wire, it is being hidden. So we are very happy to throw away parties for the birthdays, but hardly we entertain the death. Even children are not allowed to go to the death, because it is a bad omen. But each and everyone knows, everyone who is born are born to be die. But always we see, but when and where this mindfulness develop this against the grain kind of development, by accident, sometimes you go to the dissolution part only, then only you are qualified to make a comment on the particular object, because you now know the Sankhata Lakkana, arising, transitional period, and the cessation. And whenever you are to face or meet up with the cessation, lot of allergic reactions, lot of negative reaction in your body and the mind can happen, because you never expect. First your attention is to go to the beginning part. More and more you go to the beginning part, whenever the mindfulness becomes diligent and vigilant, in the same token, you can see the dissolution, and that is the part you can see not much of noting, but knowing going to continue. Knowing going to continue, and when it is happening, even the truth happening in front of your eyes or under your very nose, your value system is not happy to accept. Your likings and disliking never happy to accept it. So therefore, there should have a kind of a familiarization, kind of a seasoning, kind of a broad-mindedness to let it happen again and again. When that happens, when you are about to happen, your meditation report is very dramatic. You can explain a lot of details, and the advice must be, please keep on continuing this till the mind get accustomed, till the mind gets seasoned into that situation, and where you can see the continuation, the flux is going on, and in the deepest end, the beginning and the end of the object exactly the same in the in-breath as well as in out-breath. The beginning at the end is equally, exactly the same in rising and falling. The beginning and the end is exactly the same is left leg and the right leg. Whatever the object, the beginning at the end is equal. Only the discrepation, only the sectarianism, only the liking and disliking in the tip of the iceberg. So the moment you go submarine and try to understand, you see there is nothing to fight against this lion's share and my liking and disliking. You may fight it as far as you don't see. the beginning at the end. Because the beginning at the end is exactly the same. For example, when we have our identity, I am a male, I am a monk, and I am a forest monk, and kind of thing, make inferiority or superiority complex. But when you go deep down, I am a human. That human nature never come out as far as I recognize myself as a male or forest monk and all the kind of thing, because I am more concerned about this tip of the iceberg. But when you go down deep there, you understand each and everyone is equal in humanity. Exactly the way all the objects you are trying to see the common character. Tip of the iceberg is the perceptual part is discretely different. First in-breath to second in-breath, second in-breath to third in-breath. But when and where you become familiar with the in-breath and out-breath and observe when the mind falls calm and quiet, you can see in-breath and out-breath become equal. Whenever the object becomes subtle, they become equal. And that indicates that whenever you develop the skillfulness to the beginning of the object, at the end of the object, and when that become your second nature or natural characteristic, you see the common character in all the objects. When and where this common character come into being, the boredom is an unavoidable situation. Because a discrete, dramatic, eventful situation is only on the middle, the tip of the iceberg. But when you see the beginning and the end, there is nothing, everything is almost like equal. So therefore, when and where this mind goes from without noting, you know, when that knowledge is increasing, there's a kind of a boredom that can happen. I am not asking to create it, that can happen. And doubt can happen. Because earlier, in-breath and out-breath was equal. Now in-breath and out-breath is discrete. Now you can see more and more, you observe. And if you are not instructed, what will happen is, you may misread, my mindfulness become weak. My concentration become weak. I am not interested in meditation. Situation is more boring, more monotonous, doubtful like. So therefore, if you are well instructed and go there, this is a clear advancement in your meditation. And not only that, you are penetrating into the object and understand the natural characteristic of this materiality as well as the mentality. So whenever you are meditating in a time there is no Buddha, that means no dispensation of the Buddha, you may be an ardent practitioner, you may come up to that level, but you don't know what to do, because there is no instructions given. And beyond that, you can come out with so much of interpretations. Everything is indicating your upbringing rather than the truth. For that, they have done an experiment I hope inside Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. For my understanding, the person was Daniel Brown, but later I searched, it was not there much for my reconfirmation. With the help of the experimenting people, he has selected bright children, maybe university level, one person with the Christianity, one person with the Hinduism, one person with the Muslim, one person with the Sikh, one person with the Buddhist, and told, just look at one single object for longer time and see what is happening. So they have suggested you can take the breath, or whatever may be, one single object that is perceivable, that is, pragmatic. And when you're observing, the mind, after a while, falls calm and collect on that. And then when the objects, that's limitation disappears, when it's dissolving, and kind of a concentration, or kind of a one-pointedness, and calming and collection happen. And then some people observe the bright lightness, and they start to report it. So that indicates where, whatever may be, if you are observing one particular object for a longer time, whatever the origin of you, whatever the culture of you, it doesn't matter. Mind is go more deep into the object, and then he has asked to interpret that particular light. What do you mean? And the Christian person says, this is the omnipotent, omnipresent God, and from that only everything happened. I am lucky enough to see the original source. And the Muslim, Hindu person says, this is a Brahma Padartha, and it is mentioned in the book, and from that only everything happening. And the Muslim person also says, this is what written in the Holy Quran, when the Muhammad go into the cave, and when you observe it, that is what he has seen. And therefore they say, I have achieved something. But when he is asking from the Buddhist, he says, this is not the end, this is but the beginning, be careful. When and where you get amused by this light and lightness, you lose the story. So therefore, you must be careful not to carry it away by this doubt or boredom or liking for this light, liking for this lightness. So you must understand, whenever the object observed longer, when you are penetrate into that, lot of interpretation can happen. Each and every interpretation is wrong. You must go with open-minded. That is what the interview means. You are not allowed, and you are not asked to go take an inference. You have to keep on observing, increasing the amount of information or feasibility study rather than conclusion. And that quick decision, rushing to a quick decision, is the commoner's business. They are always with little bit of information they rush into. But when you become more mature, you are accumulating more and more information, apply the mind to the same object, anupassana, and let that get reinforced, let that get galvanized further and further, no harm. So therefore, when and where you see the natural characteristic, that is to say the beginning, the middle and to the end, and there you see the transient nature. It's fast changing, and you must go prepared for that meditation, and you see when and where the breath becomes subtle, lot of vibrations, lot of movements, and lot of activities you feel not only at the tip of the nose, everywhere in the body. Everywhere in the body the vibrations are happening, and changes are happening, and waves are running. And when it is happening, if you carefully observe, these vibrations and the wave have no boundary to say me and not me. They are in a wider space, they are like a cloud. When and where the in-breath and out-breath is delimited, space-wise, time-wise. When and where you go into the breath becomes subtle, in-breath and out-breath become somewhat similar, but don't entertain doubts. Just go there, then you can see everywhere in the body, a little vibration, certain jerks and stiffness, tension, movements can happen. Of course, it appears like you exposed to a sudden shower, or some crawling animals are going everywhere, or heat bubbles and warm bubbles are happening, or needles are running everywhere. And of course, it appears like something strange. But if you observe very carefully, there's no boundary. You lose the boundary, you appear like, and some people consider this as thrills and frills. Some people consider it as a threat. Any person who is having a special desire for his body shape and outside appearance and kind of thing, they appear that everything gone because it become spread like a balloon burst. And if you are expecting the mind to go into different shapes and different manners, you just simply can accommodate it according to the instructions you get it. And when go there, when it's the vibration or flux or things are happening, you have to take a third person stand and observe it. If you are going to recognize this as me, definitely you get disturbed. So you have to get a distance from your phenomena, just like a clinical distance the surgeons are developing as professions. You have to get a distance and observe. So this is the most difficult part. Often we claim this as me or mine or myself. So you have to observe it as and when it happens, and you can see the flux, the cloud, the vibrations are happening. So one day when I'm giving a talk like this, and it happened me to stop the talk only by 1 hour's time, and then before my getting up, one person raised the hand and asked Bhante, okay, in sitting your closed eyes, you can have this. Many already experience it. But can that happen in walking meditation? Yes. Walking meditation also that can happen. So to say, sometimes the walking happens completely effortless. Walking is not just happening. You can see your body is like a robot. It's going to that end and coming back, and there's no disturbance in mindfulness. Even in turning. Even if you look at something, even if you hear, the consistency happen, you can see, you can observe yourself just like a program puppet. So when it happens, if you consider it as a threat, you will go to a soothsayer or person having the magical powers to do something because you appear like maybe, as she mentioned, the dementia or Parkinson. Because your body you can't control, it is wavering here and there, but completely it is happening. But it never happened for the first time in a new walking path, because you are novelty and you are not ready. And not happening into the early part of your walking meditation, it has to be familiarized. You have to be in the same place and doing, and ultimately you can see completely you are relaxed. Completely amidst of all the people, solitude is there. The mind is complete in solitude, and it's a kind of a contentment. It's a kind of peace of mind. And sitting, of course, it's more solidified that in walking meditation. And further, in the day-to-day activities also, if you are training yourself or make an effort to be mindful in brushing your teeth, or mindful in washing your face, washing your hand, or whatever may be, if you do wholeheartedly, you can see this body knowledge is completely doing the same thing. Nothing to do, because you have to just say, okay, now brush your teeth, and it will start brushing your teeth, and you can observe it. So there also you can take a stand and see yourself. You can be aware what is happening. So likewise, whatever the routine jobs we do, whatever the thing we do by ourselves without socialization, you can understand, your mind can get solitude, not physically. On top of that physical, the mentally, it can be composed and be aware. And when it is happening, that contentment, that peace of mind is happening or gaining not by seeing visual object through your eyes, not by listening sounds through your ear, not by smelling good thing or bad thing through your nose, not by a taste, delicious one you are eating, not by even touching, even the breath or left and right touch or washing your dishes, everything is happening. And mind also completely relaxed. So there the Buddha says it is viveka jampiti sukhang. You are free from 5 senses or faculties and free from the external stimuli, but kind of a contentment is happening that is called immaterial kind of a pleasure. Never you can gain such a thing from materialistic thing or luxuries or external thing. So therefore, when we are developing the external equipments and the technology and the infrastructure and the communication, all the kind of thing, whole gamut of such pleasure is dependable, outside. But here, it's happening. So it is often happen, knowing. At the beginning, knowing without noting. And later, even the knowing is not necessary, because everywhere, whether rising or falling, whether in-breath or out-breath, whether left or right, the objects at the deep level, exactly the same. So therefore, specific knowledge, me and not me, boundary is not necessary. It is a kind of a artificial thing, but our rational mind never accepts it. Even though it is happening under your very nose, so you have to keep on practicing, and therefore the Upanishad side says, when and where you see the natural characteristics, that's the beginning to the middle to the end, you see the flux. You see the transient nature, and when and where the transient nature come into being, you come to know the discrimination between objects are only superficial. At the deep level, it is no more separate from one to the other. They become just energy. They become just vibration. They become just jerks. And if you are not going to escape from that and instead invite or rather facilitate it, then you find this is a natural, it's a common character. And that common character never indicate beginning. It never indicate end. It's a flux. It's a continuum. That is sometimes known as bhava, and so continuity is there. The tip of the iceberg only, you have the beginning, the middle and the end. And it is like a canvas in the picture. Or if you go to a seashore, you can see the beginning, the middle and the end of each and every wave. But if you look at the horizon, there is no beginning, no middle, no end. It's there. But it's very boring. When you go to the beach, we never look at the horizon because it is flat. But you are very dramatic to see waves. Waves are the most thinner part of the ocean. At the deep end, it is flat. Likewise, when you go to the deep, when you go to the Samanya Lakkana, that's a common character, you can see if you wish to have a fight, have a discrimination. If you wish to have a peace, recognize this other party also the same, exactly the same, and see the common character. So this appear as something negative according to the present day of one-upmanship in the education, one-upmanship in this information technology. Never recognize the other party as the human. You try to see your special characters, but when you are meditating, you can see the humanity come into being. When and where you to see this common character, and once that accept only, the insight knowledges can happen. Never otherwise by reading books, never otherwise by expectation, never otherwise by the focusing your mind or conditioning your mind. So these are happening in a orderly manner, and summarizing, Upanishad says, the when and where you learn the art of go deep into the object, rest follow suit. You have only one thing. Whatever may be the common object you select, don't think you have seen it enough. Just go again and again, as if you are a beginner, as if you have seen it for the first time, and you can see different facets, different shapes, different manners, and in the exhausting manner. You have to go deep and deep when it is happening. The rest, the follow suit. So therefore, balance is happening often in the autopiloting mode. But each time you are sitting, you have to start like a beginner. Each time you go to the walking meditation, you have to start like a beginner. Now, we are in the third day, fourth day, and when it is happening, you have little familiarity to your cushion. You have your familiarity to your place, your familiarity to your meditation. Therefore, the past memories and the momentum, soon you come and sit. Sometimes, without noting, the knowledge can happen. Knowing can happen. Under such circumstances, in order to be a beginner, don't do unwanted noting. If you can continue meditation without noting, if the knowing is happening, understand it is because of the momentum you have developed, and let the knowledge happen without noting. And if it is not happening, don't hesitate to start noting. When and where mind is not listening, bewildered, apply noting. If the mind is falling calm and collected upon one particular object, don't worry about the noting, just keep on knowing. One day you will see the differences between objects, differences between postures, difference between the morning and the evening, they become less and less. Under such circumstances, even that knowledge also becoming null and void. That knowledge is not the knowledge what we say. We are the knowledge to see the common character is the what, that is the what called the maturity. And when that happened only, the vipassana jnana, that means arising and passing away nature and cause and effect relationship, and when and where it become the flux, it has no origin, there's no middle, there's no end. So this flux is ever changing. Looking at this flux is a suffering. It is not pleasurable. So therefore, when and where something is changing without a rest for a split second, looking at that itself is suffering. That is why when you are sitting, you feel the torturing kind of, burning kind of thing. But moment you understand this is not me, this is not mine, this is not myself, it's ungovernable, it is not listening to me. So therefore the moment you learn the art of disclaiming, you learn the art of disavowing, and you see this is there, it's impermanent, it's suffering. Why should I claim this as me, or mine, or myself? And moment you see this impermanent nature, suffering nature, but followed by a disclaimer or disavow, you can see if you wish to suffer, you can claim, you can commit, and then you suffer. And under the insight knowledges, they are there. And you have your own rights as a yogi to disclaim it or disavow it. And if you are disavowing, your present moment is secure. And many people concerned about the society and the social responsibilities, they may claim this disavowing and disclaimer is escapism, or it is not done because it is your right to worry about your kith and kins. Of course, if you are a fool, you can do it, no problem. If you read the paper, so much of bad news, so you can brood upon them. You can sleep without eating, and tomorrow morning also you can read the same page, and you can suffer. But the day you understand each and every newspaper is lying, twisted information, you will understand you are a fool. You have no contentment, you have not answered your own question, and you have the vested interest to look at the others' questions. It's the worst thing in the human mind. It's called vested interest. First of all, you have to be qualified. You have to understand the common character. Then only you can listen to someone. Then only you can think about a way out. Then only you can have a helping hand. So, how much we are driven by the vested interest. From morning to evening. Because of our conceit. Because of our self-centered thinking, because we must learn how to get the lion's share. We can get the bigger share, for that we are thinking. But if you think from the morning to evening, present moment to the present moment to moment, there's no qualitative difference. If you keep here and now, that thought moment has no difference, it's almost the same. And the day you understand, the here and now experience what you get, is exactly same with the Buddha. You can see Buddha is sitting close by like. Otherwise you want to become Buddha and you have a lot of perfections and everything happen. The moment you understand the way, here and now, the present moment or the diligence, that is no qualitative differences, that is exactly the Buddha. So if you wish, and that is exactly Dhamma, that's the principle, that's exactly Sangha. And if you say, no, I am a person always breaking precepts, and how can I, sitting close by the Buddha, of course you can get a distance and you can suffer. No problem. No one is coming and asking any explanation. But that is why we are so happy to suffer. It's so happy to have burning and torturing nature. And not only that, we try to prove others, it is my sole duty to suffer. Yes, it's a human right if the Buddha is not there. The Buddha is like a mirror image. When there are some people those who can see. So when you go to that people, you can see what a way from morning to evening we are accumulating unrelevant things and get committed, and we say that we have no time to be here and now. Because we have duties. They don't know here and now is much powerful than duties. Anything you can do and still be aware of here and now, but when and where you go to the here and now, that thought moment is exactly the same. When I was in Nilambe, and I am practicing, there was nothing, I was there. So immediately a blink came into my mind. I try to remember the very first day I kept a crystal of salt on my tongue. And now, after so much of years, I may keep another crystal of a grain of salt on your tongue. And after 10 years or 15 years, I may keep a salt grain on my tongue. Is there any difference in the taste according to your age? No, salt is salt. That experience never grow old. So exactly the here and now, exactly the same. And when you come to here and now, we all are the same. That we never happy. We never happy, we wanted to say, no, I am specific. And that is the root of suffering. And instead, if you not only the roaming in the tip of the iceberg, go down there and you see 1/10 on the tip, other whole is down there, we have not seen. And we are making so much of bragging statement, telling I have seen an iceberg. So this is the world. So therefore, before making a statement, before make a decision, keep on practicing, that is called vipassana. Each and every time you look at the same thing again and again, different shapes and different manners can happen. That's advancement. That is not cheating nature. That is not something to be disheartened. That is not something to be entertain doubts. That is not something to be fearful. This is the way mind is going there. And one day, when and where you accumulated enough information, what the end result is, you may find all the objects, everything coming from the same source. Only the tip of the iceberg is discrete, but all the others are the same. And that is what ultimately leading in this quantum physics also. This is whatever may be the manifestation, they are coming from the same common pool, same common energy and power. The moment you go there, if you still see, I am the person, look at the quantum, still you are not in the game. You are also part and parcel of the quantum, and you also dissolve into that. And in the science you can't do it because you are looking at outside. But inside, in the meditation, you are looking something in, and therefore there may be an end of it. At the beginning you feel like there's no end, ever the breath is changing, ever the rising and fall is changing, and in-breath and out, the left and the right is changing, yes. But when you keep on practicing, one day it will gather enough information, so to say, the natural characteristics, and then onward you see the flux, you see the common character, and once you see the common character, looking at it is unavoidably transient. Unavoidably it is suffering. But the Buddha gave us the disclaimer, if you know this is not me, this is not mine, why should I get committed? Let that happen. And moment you see it is like non-governable, it is not losing your executive powers, not losing your ownership, but you are disclaiming the impermanent and suffering nature, and that is how the emancipation, or that is how the vipassana knowledges can happen. So they have vipassana knowledge and come into being only when and where the causative factors are there. So it is your basic duty is not to arrive at a decision, but to keep on observing. While observing, the inward journey starts. And if you are changing the object, hardly you can end the task. So therefore, day by day, you I take my posture as my primary object, or I take my breath as primary object. I take left and right as my primary object, sitting, walking, and whenever you are accumulating, then don't worry about the other object you left aside, because this very thing you are studying is like a holographic effect, exactly the same thing is the others. So that understanding happening through the inferential knowledge, deductive knowledge, keep on practicing till you get the confirmation or background information, feasibility on that particular object, and definitely it is leading further, and not only the object getting revealed, but your mindfulness become very, very sharp. Thin slicing can happen in time and space, and there you see through. So therefore, knowing without noting is this transitional area. So don't expect that to happen in the first day in the meditation if you are a beginner. Then it is happening. Please facilitate it, even without noting when the knowledge going to happen, manifesting. Don't disturb the train. And that is your facilitation, and no one can do it for you. Hope this information and the examples will help organize your meditation, and you will be meditating happily. Wishing that, I would like to sum up today's talk. Thank you very much for listening.